Hey there, class. We're starting to work with some pastels now. We've been working with kind of abstract expressionist art and mark making, kind of emphasizing color and line and expression. What we're going to do now with these pastels is we're going to use some of that mark making and using shape and using color, and we're going to start to impose some control over those elements of art, and we're going to use that to start to create form and to start to create kind of more realistic looking art. So what I'm going to do is just a quick demo. You guys will do something really similar to this, but I'm just going to kind of walk you through the basics of using these pastels to blend them effectively and make what will hopefully be a really nice looking image. Forgive me if I seem rushed. This is my third time trying to shoot this video. One time I got interrupted, and then a second time one of the cameras stopped recording and I went back and there's nothing on it. And so now we're trying number 3 and I'm going to try to get through it quick so I don't waste a ton of time. So if you will look with me at the paper here and the pastels that I have set up, I'll kind of show you the setup here. 1 second, I'm going to get one more thing. I realize I'm missing a tool. All right, so I like to keep some tissue on me when I'm working with pastels. It just helps to kind of keep the pastels clean, get some of those other colors off of there that inevitably get on when you start to mix colors together. So I want to keep these pastels clean, especially with the first application of color. I want the first application to be really nice. And then we start to blend them, and so it's okay if they start to get mixed. All right, so if you look down at the artboard here, I've got a toned piece of pastel paper. And similar to the exercise that you guys will be doing before this, I have a white pastel, a black pastel, and then I have 3 colors that will blend together well. So I have a dark green, like a medium green, and then a yellow is kind of like a highlight color. So just 3 colors that blend well together, and black and white. So just 5 pastels is all you need. You also need the ability, like me, to be able to draw a perfect circle. And you can see I've already got that made. Hopefully, since you guys are in high school, you already know how to make a perfect circle. I'm sure someone's taught you, so I'm just going to skip that part. No, I'm kidding. I just used a bowl and I traced around the edge of it. So that's how I got my perfect circle. You could use one of the tape rolls, or I have Folgers cans around the class. It makes this so much quicker than trying to sketch out a perfect circle, and then it's going to look really nice when you're done. So, got your circle. That's all you need to get started. That's our basic shape. And now we're going to give that shape some form by adding some highlights and shadows to it. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'll point out first that I drew this in white. Hopefully it shows up on the camera above me well. I did that on purpose because if you draw it in pencil, it's going to kind of show through the pastel in some places, and it's going to kind of take away from the painterly effect that pastel can create. So I drew in white, and that way it will kind of just blend in with all the pastel when I'm all done. So first thing I'm going to do, we're going to create basically like an orb or a droplet, like it's made of glass or water or something. And so with something transparent, when light comes through, something transparent, it comes through at a point. So I'm just going to create a little point of light. And that's probably fine. And then as that light travels through something that's transparent, it will usually refract or diffuse throughout that object. So what I'm going to do is just kind of try to imagine that this light starts to travel through this droplet and it kind of expands. And you'll see as I apply this white, what I'm doing is called scumbling. This is like a controlled scribbling kind of a mark that I'm making here. And you'll usually want to start pastels with a scumbling type of mark because it makes it really easy to blend them with other colors. As you build the pastel, you'll kind of work in a couple layers with pastels usually. So I'm just going to say that maybe this light kind of comes in slightly from the right, and so then the light ends up slightly to the left here. I think that would look nice and kind of convincing and natural. So again, just kind of some of this loose sort of scribbling motion. I gotta keep in mind that I'm trying to make my time quick, so neither of my cameras shuts down on me. And then what will happen, so your light comes in from above and it kind of expands throughout the shape. A lot of times, whatever the transparent object is setting on, the color of that object will then kind of warp around the top of the shape. So I'm just gonna go with like my first shadow color. We'll make this like a base shadow color, this green. And I'm just gonna fill the rest of this right now with this green color. And again, just really loose, scumbling kind of motion. It's just gonna almost look like a scribble, but a little more controlled than a scribble. So you still wanna show me that you can color inside the lines right now. And honestly, it's okay if you don't, because we'll do a background here. And pastel is nice in the fact that if you colored outside line, when you do the outside, you can cover it back up because the pastel's so thick, it'll cover the other color. So it's kind of forgiving in that way. It is a little harder to clean up, but pretty forgiving still. All right, trying to do this quick, but without getting too messy. All right, so I'm scumbling throughout here. So I've got like a base shadow. I've got these major highlights. And then what I'll do is I'll create kind of some deeper shadows now. We just want kind of a range of values to start with. So you can see this looks pretty nice. Highlight, it expands. Got the color of the shape that's coming through the shape. And then I'm just gonna get some darker shadows back up here. It's like a really pretty deep blue-green going on here. I'm just gonna let it kind of wrap around the top, almost the opposite of what the white's doing there. This would be shadows from the surface that the object's sitting on that kind of then get wrapped back up into the top of the object. Okay. That's probably good for now. I might go and expand that a little more later, but you can hopefully start to see something happening, right? You're starting to see a couple different values being created. Then let's see, where do we go? Let's go with kind of the background. We'll go ahead and try to give it a little bit of context here in the background. And so some of this will be the same color, right? This green's next to other green of this color, but then once it's next to the dark green, you'll get some nice contrast. And we might add a little of that white or a little of that yellow to this to brighten it up and lighten it up a little bit, but still scumbling. We're just giving this little orb a little bit of an environment to hang out in here. So I'm just gonna continue to wrap around here. All right. So probably up at the top, I'll add a lighter color. But then let's wrap it around to the bottom too. And at the bottom, I want to end up adding a darker color, because even though this object is transparent, it will still cast a shadow, especially right where it touches whatever surface it's setting on. So I'm going to keep going around with this green. Hopefully I'm not distorting my shape of my sphere too much. All right, so let's expand this a little bit. Still just loose, controlled scribble. Also, the pastels I'm using are softer than the ones you'll be using, which can make them messier, but it also makes them faster to work with. So hopefully I'll be able to get through this in one video without that video taking too long, because I don't want you guys to have to watch a 30-minute video or something, but who knows, it might end up being that long anyway. I'll speed it up. All right, so we've got that. And then just like I tied some shadow in at the top here, underneath, we would also get some shadows. So I'm gonna get some of this darker green, kind of wrapping around the bottom, right close to the sphere, just to show that it's casting a shadow on the surface. This shadow, where an object touches the surface, is called the occlusion shadow. It's always the darkest part of the shadow. It's where either no light gets in or very little light gets in compared to the rest of the shadow. The rest of the shadow might be a little bit lighter. And you can see that as we blend this into the lighter green. That's going to kind of happen naturally and be represented naturally. All right, so we don't have to go too far with that. We'll come back to the shadow in a little bit. All right, so we've got a base, right? This is kind of like almost like the underpainting. If you're working in a painting, a lot of times you put down just these big blocks of color first to get you started. So this would be similar to that. This would be like if I was going to paint in acrylic a lot of time or oil paint, I use an underpainting. So it's just kind of a map of where the rest of the drawing or painting is going to go. All right, so now what we want to do is actually start blending some of this. And so I think I want, let's see, let's start with this white. Let's pull this white up into the green a little bit. We'll kind of start with our highlights. That white looks a little weak to me, so I'm going to go and kind of press a little harder with the white this pass, especially down here along the bottom. And what will start to happen is this white will start to blend a little bit, and it will start to fill in some of that paper color. A lot of times with pastels, your pastel paper will have a tone to it, and that helps you see the colors of the pastels better as you put them on. Especially these lighter colors like your whites or your pale yellows, they're kind of hard to see on a solid white sheet. So that's why you do that with pastel paper or just drawing paper in general, if it's a nice quality drawing paper. So now we got that highlight put in there a little better. It's looking a little stronger. What I'm going to start to do is then pull some of that white up into some of this green. And then we're going to get a completely different value. Again, I'm scumbling. I'm not trying to press too hard at this point in time, just kind of scumbling, getting some white to tie these two colors together. It's going to give us a transition color, basically. All right, so we're kind of scumbled. We've pulled the white into the green. We can touch that up some more later. I'm going to go a little higher with it, I think. I don't actually know if I'm going to use this yellow that I got out. I don't know. This looks pretty nice. We'll see. I'll do it. I've got it out anyway. So this white looks pretty nice. So then we can do the same thing with this dark shadow up here. I think I do want the darkness to come down a little further. So I'm going to pull that dark shadow, keep scumbling down into this kind of medium green, this like grass green almost. We can let those blend together a little bit. We'll let it wrap around this highlight some. And just keep in mind that this is a curved shape, so you kind of want your colors to have that spherical, that circular kind of curved shape to them as well. All right, I'm gonna scumble a little looser here, just barely blending. Then I'm gonna go back over this middle green. I'm gonna let this middle green blend into the darker and into the lighter. So this middle green at the bottom here is gonna go into some of that white, and it's gonna give us yet another value of green. All right, it's not quite as light as that green that I just added the white to. Still not quite as dark as the green over here. It's just, you're building layers and you're building values basically. All right, so just scumbling, touching a little bit of that white here and there to pull it in. And actually this would probably be a good place to start working that yellow in, so I'll come back to that. But then I'm gonna get a little more of this green to blend up here. And then I'm gonna start to let this green blend back into the dark green. That's kind of a push and a pull. I pull the dark green down into the lighter green, and then I kind of push that lighter green back up into the dark green. And it is a bit of a back and forth, but it makes for a really, really nice finished product. It'll have a really smooth, painterly kind of look to it at the end. It'll be, it'll have really nice evidence of the hand and mark making and stuff. So that's the charm of oil pastels, is you're drawing, but if you do it well, it's gonna look like you painted. All right, so hopefully you start to see that kind of come to life a little more, I'm gonna add a little bit more of this light green up into this dark green. I'm just seeing some spots where it could really look like if that light green comes through, it's almost like that light green's kind of glowing as it comes through the darker green. What I might do is end the video here so it doesn't go too long, and I might shoot another one where I finish. I think that's what I'll do, because I think it's just gonna get a little too long here in a second. So I'm gonna cut this off. I'll stop here. Hopefully if you guys can get to something like this on day one, we'll be in good shape. Hey, thanks so much, and I will see you guys in class.